I went to the charity night in Lantara with a feeling in my chest I could not name. Everyone said it was a good cause, good people, good food, but I knew my past would be there too. My former sister-in-law Germain would be there, and so would the ones who only remembered me when my life fell apart. I wore a plain blue dress and stood in front of the mirror for a long time, breathing slow, telling myself I had lived through worse things than quiet laughter. The hall was bright and loud, full of music and shining shoes. When Germain saw me, she smiled wide and walked over like we were old friends. In front of others, she called me useless in a soft, joking voice. Some people laughed. I felt my face burn, but I did not speak. I just nodded and walked away with my hands shaking, pretending I needed air. Near the door, a man in a dark jacket called my full name. His voice was calm. He said his name was Cater from the city of Mavuno. He held a thick folder and said my uncle left me everything when he died. I almost laughed because it sounded like a mistake. My uncle disappeared years ago. I thought he forgot me. Germain rushed over with loud questions and Cater explained it all right there. The room went quiet. No one laughed now. Outside under the night sky, I signed my name with hands that trembled from wonder, not fear. I walked home smiling, thinking of the girl I used to be, small under cruel words, and how tall she finally felt. The night in Zawira was loud like it always was for rich charity events. All bright lights and soft music, and people talking over one another as if silence might expose them. I stood near the wall with a cold drink in my hand, watching dresses sweep the floor and polished shoes slide across marble. Everyone looked so sure of who they were. I felt small there, like I was borrowing air that did not belong to me. Then I saw Narin across the room. She was shining in gold, laughing too loudly, holding the kind of confidence that makes others step back. Our eyes met for half a second and I knew she had seen me. She walked over slowly, her smile wide and sweet as sugar, the kind that hides something sharp inside. People turned to look because she always made sure they did. When she reached me, she took my hand as if we were old friends, squeezed it tight and laughed. Then she said, soft and clear, useless, as if it were an old joke that only we shared. A few people laughed with her. Not everyone, but enough. The word hit me so fast I forgot how to breathe. It felt like a door slammed inside my chest. I smiled back because my body did not know what else to do. The room kept moving. Glasses clinked. Music floated on, but I stood frozen, hearing only that one word echo in my head. I made my way through the crowd like I was walking through water, heavy and slow, and found a quiet corner near a tall window that looked out over the lights of Zawira city. My hands were shaking. I pressed them together and stared at the dark glass like maybe I could disappear into it. I thought of the years after my marriage failed in Kintaba, how I packed my clothes in silence while neighbors watched from behind curtains, how I slept on my cousin's floor in Termo and cried into a folded cloth so no one would hear. I thought I was stronger now. I thought I had buried that girl, but one word pulled her back out, shaking and unsure. I almost left right then. I was so close to the door I could feel the night air slipping in each time it opened. I told myself, just go, no one will stop you. And that was the sad part. No one would have. I wiped my face, breathing slow, telling myself I had survived worse than a room full of soft laughter. When I looked back into the hall, Narin was already turned away from me, smiling wide again, speaking to someone important as if I had never stood there at all. And I realized something that hurt and healed at the same time. The word she threw at me said nothing about me anymore. It only showed who she still was. I did not feel brave in that moment. I felt tired, but I stayed. I stayed standing by that window, shaking and breathing and choosing not to run, and that choice felt small at first, then quietly strong, like a light that does not blind but does not go out either. My chest tightened so fast it felt like someone had pulled a rope around my heart. I could still hear the laughter behind me, light and careless, as if nothing real had happened. I wanted to turn back and shout, to throw every hurt word I had ever swallowed straight into the air. But my mouth would not open. The old feeling came rushing in, the one I thought I had buried. the feeling of never being enough. Not smart enough, not strong enough, not chosen enough. I walked without looking at anyone, my steps slow but shaking, moving to the edge of the hall in the Maluro district where the lights were softer and the music sounded far away. My hands were cold. I pressed them against my sides to hide that they were trembling. I did not want anyone to see my face. I did not want anyone to see how close I was to falling apart. I stood near a tall pillar and stared at the floor, counting my breath like someone had once taught me long ago. In and out, in and out. The room felt like it was spinning around me while I stayed stuck in one place. I told myself it was stupid to hurt this much over one word, but my heart did not listen. It carried the weight of every time I had been told I was too much and not enough at the same time. For a moment, I was back in Doria, standing in the rain outside a locked door, holding my bag with everything I owned inside it. I was back in a small room in Nambico, listening to people argue about my life as if I was not sitting right there. All those years folded into one sharp breath. I wiped at my eyes without lifting my head. I told myself not to cry. Not here. Not in front of these people who only knew my worst days and none of my quiet wins. The door to the hall was just a few steps away. I could leave. I could disappear into the streets of Maluro and no one would stop me, no one would even notice. That truth hurt more than the insult. I took one step toward the exit, then another. My chest felt hollow. I whispered to myself that I never should have come, that my first feeling had been right. But as I stood there, halfway between leaving and staying, a strange calm slipped in. It was not strong. It was small and shaky. But it whispered that I had already walked away from worse places than this, that I had rebuilt myself in rooms with no applause and no soft lights. I leaned back against the wall and let myself breathe again, slowly. I did not feel brave. I felt tired and bruised inside, but I also felt present, still here, still standing. The room kept spinning with noise and laughter and shining faces, but I stayed still at the edge of it, holding myself together in the quiet space no one else seemed to see. And for the first time that night, I did not feel like running anymore. I was only a few steps from the exit when a soft voice said my full name, clear and careful, like it was something fragile. I turned, thinking for a second that maybe my past had found a new way to follow me. A quiet man stood there in a dark suit that looked a little too heavy for the warm night. He held a thick folder against his chest like it mattered. He said his name was Dazian, and that he was an attorney from the city of Noruba. He told me he had been looking for me all evening. My heart gave one hard, confused beat. No one ever looked for me anymore. People usually walked past me. He opened the folder just enough for me to see my name written across the front in bold, careful letters. It looked strange there, like it belonged to someone else. My first thought was that it was a mistake. My second thought was to laugh from nerves. The music behind us swelled and fell like waves, but everything around me felt still. I asked him if he was sure. He nodded once and said he was very sure. His voice was calm, steady in a way that made my hands tremble. People brushed past us, their shoulders warm, their laughter light, but I felt like the room had narrowed down to just the two of us and that folder between us. He asked if we could speak where it was quieter. I followed him a few steps without thinking, my feet moving before my fear could catch up. We stood near a small pillar where the light was softer. He told me that my uncle from long ago had passed away in Noruba 3 months before. The same uncle who vanished from our lives without warning. The one people stopped talking about because it hurt too much or because they were ashamed. I felt a strange tightness in my throat. I had not heard that man's name spoken out loud in years. Dazian said my uncle had left everything to me, not part of it, all of it. Land on the edge of Noruba, houses in old streets near the river, shares in a growing transport business that carried goods across cities I had never seen. The words sounded unreal, like a story told too fast. I felt dizzy and had to lean against the pillar. I thought of the nights I counted coins on my kitchen table in Aduru just to buy bread. I thought of how small my world had been. I waited for the part where he said it was a joke or that I had to prove something first. But he only kept talking, explaining gently like he knew my mind was falling behind his words. He said my uncle had followed my life from far away, quietly, that he had kept my letters when no one else did, that he believed I would one day need something solid under my feet. My eyes burned and I did not understand why. I laughed once, a small sound that broke out of me without warning. It sounded thin and strange in my own ears. I told him he had found me on the worst night. He said maybe it was the right night. For a moment, we stood there in the soft noise of the room, two strangers tied by a man who had left and returned in the only way he could. I felt shock curl into warmth, fear mix with something that felt a little like hope. I did not feel rich or powerful. I felt seen in a way I had not felt in years. My heart was still racing when I thanked him. He said we would speak more soon and handed the folder to me. It was heavier than I thought it would be. When he walked away, the music rushed back into my ears and the lights felt bright again, but everything had changed inside me. I stood there holding my name in my hands, my heart still stuttering, feeling like the room had shifted without anyone else noticing. We stood near a quiet corner of the hall in the town of Lumira, while the music drifted past us like something from another life. The man said his name was Zakio, and his voice was steady in a way that made my chest feel weak. He told me my uncle from long ago had died 3 months before in the city of Barenzi. The same uncle who disappeared when I was still young, the one people said had chosen his own life over all of us. I had not said his name in years. I thought I had already buried him in my heart. Zakio opened the folder in his hands and spoke slowly, like he did not want to scare me with the weight of his words. He said my uncle left everything to me, not a gift to share, not something to fight over, everything. Land near the wide red hills outside Barenzi, 2 old houses by the river, a strong transport company that moved goods across towns I had only heard about in stories. Each word landed on me like a soft shock. My ears rang. I had to hold the back of a chair to keep from falling. I kept waiting for the part where he would say there was a mistake, that another name would appear, that I only dreamed what I was hearing. But the truth stayed standing in front of me, calm and sure. I thought of all the years I believed that man forgot I existed. I thought of the way the family stopped speaking about him like silence could erase pain. I thought of all the times I stood alone and believed I had no one quietly on my side. Zakio said my uncle had followed my life from far away, that he asked about me through strangers, that he sent help I never knew came from him, that he kept a small picture of me from when I was still missing my front teeth. My hands began to shake, not from fear, but from something warm rising too fast inside my chest. I laughed once without meaning to. It came out thin and broken, and then it turned into tears I could not stop. For a long time, I had carried the idea that I was easy to forget, that I was only seen when my life was falling apart. And now I was hearing that someone I thought had vanished had been standing quietly behind my life all along. The music from the hall drifted in again, and people passed us laughing, not knowing the ground inside me had just shifted. Zakio said my uncle wrote that he trusted me more than the others because I knew how to live with empty hands. I pressed my fingers to my mouth to keep from making a sound. I felt small and full at the same time. I felt like the girl I used to be and the woman I was becoming were standing together in one narrow space. The world did not suddenly look rich or easy. It looked wide. I thanked Zakio in a voice that did not sound like mine. When he left me there with the folder against my chest, it felt heavy in a way that was not about money. It felt heavy with years, with silence, with quiet acts of love I never knew were happening. I stood there for a long time under the soft lights of Lumira, breathing slow, smiling through wet eyes, finally knowing that even when I thought I was forgotten, someone had been planning for my tomorrow. The room was still buzzing when Luria pushed through the crowd with her sharp heels and louder voice, asking what was going on like she owned the air itself. Her laugh had not fully faded from before. the one she used when she had shattered me with a pretty smile and a cruel word. The people who had laughed with her were still nearby, holding their glasses, pretending nothing had happened. The man beside me did not raise his voice. He did not change his calm face. He only turned slightly so everyone could hear and said that my late uncle from the city of Norumo had left his full estate to me. Not a gift, not a favor, everything. Land near the wide plains of Kairma, houses along the river in Old Zafiro, a fast-growing transport company that carried goods across the North Roads. The words fell like slow stones into the room, one by one. At first no one spoke, even the music seemed to fade. Then the silence broke into small sounds of shock, soft gasps, low whispers, people leaning closer as if the truth might run away if they did not hold it with their ears. Luraya's smile froze halfway on her face. Her eyes moved from the man's calm face to mine, then back again. The color drained from her cheeks like water finding a crack. Someone behind her whispered my name like it was a surprise they had just learned. Another person laughed, not cruel this time, but unsure. Luraya tried to speak again, but her voice came out thin and broken. She asked how this could be true. The man answered simply and showed the papers. The sound in the room changed. The soft mockery that once floated around me vanished and was replaced with careful voices and curious eyes. I felt every stare land on me, heavy and warm at the same time. I wanted to shrink and stand tall all at once. I saw in Luraya's face the moment she understood that the woman she had just tried to break was now standing on ground her own family had chased for years and never reached. Her shoulders stiffened. Her laugh did not return. For the first time that night, she did not look like she was winning anything. I did not feel joy in her fall. I only felt the strange quiet of balance, like something that had been uneven for too long had finally leveled. People began to move toward me slowly, not rushing like before, but careful now, like the air had rules. Some smiled in new ways. Some avoided my eyes. A few said my name like we were old friends. I nodded and answered softly, feeling like I was walking through a dream that had borrowed my face. Luria stepped back into the crowd without another word. She did not look at me again. The man beside me asked if I was all right, and I surprised myself by laughing. It came out soft and light, not broken this time. My chest still hurt from earlier, but the pain had changed shape. It no longer curled inward. It spread out. I thought of all the times I had been measured by my worst days. All the rooms where my name meant small things. And now here I was, standing in the same place where I had been cut open with a smile, watching the story turn in a way no one saw coming, not even me. The room slowly filled with sound again, but it was not the same sound as before. It was quieter, careful. And in the middle of it, I stood breathing, not powerful in the loud way, but steady in the kind of way that does not need permission to exist. After the room changed its voice, people began to move toward me like the air had shifted and pushed them forward. Smiles appeared where sharp looks used to live. Hands touched my arm in soft, unsure ways. Names I barely remembered suddenly sounded warm in their mouths. Some spoke too fast, tripping over their words with praise that felt new and thin. I answered kindly because I had no anger left in me, only a quiet distance that surprised even me. Then I saw Ravina coming closer, slower than the others, her eyes moving like she was searching for the right version of herself to wear. Her voice dropped low when she spoke, almost gentle now, as if the room might break if she spoke too loud. She said she had not meant anything earlier. She said the night had been long. She tried to laugh, but it did not rise. I listened and nodded and held her eyes without flinching. I did not feel the rush to forgive or the need to remind her what she had done. I only felt still. People stood around us pretending not to listen, but they were listening. Every small sound felt heavy with meaning. Ravina's words floated out and settled somewhere between us, unfinished. I thanked her for the apology with a calm I did not practice. She gave a small, tight smile and stepped back into the crowd. For the first time, I saw her as someone small too, someone who had learned to lift herself by cutting others down. That thought did not make me proud. It only made me quiet. More people came, some with nervous laughter, some with sudden respect, some with eyes that asked questions they did not dare to speak. I kept answering softly, like I was walking through a place made of glass. Somewhere far back in the room, I heard a burst of laughter again, light and careless, but it no longer moved me. I felt something deeper unfolding inside my chest, slow and steady like water finding its own path. For years I thought my worth lived in the way people spoke my name or turned away from it. I thought it rested in marriages, in job titles, in rooms that wanted me. But standing there in the soft gold light of Cavera Hall, with my hands finally still at my sides, I understood something without anyone saying it to me. My worth had been with me in the narrow rooms and the cold mornings. It had sat beside me when I ate alone. It had walked with me through broken streets in Zaliko and quiet evenings in Indari when no one clapped for survival. It had been there before any of these people decided I was worth seeing. The noise around me rose again, not as loud as before, but alive. Music curled through the air, warm and slow this time. Someone brushed past me laughing, real laughter, not cruel. I breathed in and felt the night settle into my bones. I felt the girl I used to be standing close, the one who once believed she was only what others allowed her to be. I wanted to take her hand and tell her she had always been whole. As I stepped away from the circle of faces and moved toward the open terrace, the city lights of Termi spread out before me like a river of stars. The air was cool on my cheeks. I leaned on the railing and laughed once, soft and quiet, not because everything was fixed, but because something important had shifted. Not outside me, inside. And that was enough to carry me forward without fear of losing myself again. Outside, the night air of Noruba felt cool and wide on my skin, like it had been waiting for me. The noise from the hall faded into a soft hum behind the doors, and the stars above Kirelo looked brighter than they had all evening. I stood by a small stone table with a man I had just met hours before, and he laid the first paper in front of me. My hands trembled as I held the pen, not from fear, but from the strange weight of what was unfolding. I signed my name slowly, watching the ink curve into letters I had written 1,000 times before on small things, rent slips, job forms, borrowed promises. This time it felt different. I laughed under my breath, a soft sound that slipped out without warning, because part of me still could not believe this was real. I thought of the girl I used to be in Nerdu, shrinking every time someone said her name with pity, every time someone said she was nothing. That girl felt very far away and very close at the same time. When it was done, I handed back the pen and stepped away from the table. The night wrapped around me gently. I did not feel rich. I did not feel powerful in the loud way people imagine. I felt quiet and awake. I walked past the tall doors of the hall and did not look back at the lights or the faces inside. My feet carried me down the wide steps and into the open street, where a few late vendors were laughing near a cart of warm bread. Their laughter was easy and real. I bought a piece and shared it with a stray dog that followed me for a moment and then ran off. As I walked through the streets of Kirelo, I felt taller with every step, not because of what now had my name on it, but because I finally knew that my name had always belonged to something whole. The night did not change. The world did not bow. But inside me, something stood up and stayed standing. And that was enough to carry me home.